Hey there, booktube. Noah. Kind of a random. I'm gonna piggyback off Brian here and do like a random hodgepodge of a Saturday vid for y'all. This is a shirt that I wear sometimes when I'm making videos. If you can see, this is actually a book shirt. This is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. You see the Dark Tower there, Roland, Jake, and Oy the Billy Bumbler, Susanna, and Eddie. And they're in this rose, and a rose is another kind of iteration of the Dark Tower itself. And it says there at the bottom a quote from the first book of the Dark Tower series, The Gunslinger. Go then, there are other worlds than these. So I just wanted to point it out because I never have. And I like bookish, geeky stuff like that. So, along with that, now I got some books off of an eBay wish list this last week sent to me, and so I figured I'd show some of these that have been on the list for a long time that I have not picked up, but now I do have. So I'm gonna kind of sneak these in just as I'm reading other stuff. I'll be sneaking these in. This is Robin Waterfield, the Theology of Arithmetic. This is a transcript of a work by Iamblichus, the 4th century Greece. It is about the mystical, mathematical, and cosmological symbolism of the first 10 numbers. It is the longest work on number symbolism to survive from the ancient world. Robin Waterfield's careful translation contains helpful footnotes, an extensive glossary, bibliography, and a foreword. Never before translated from the ancient Greek, this important source work is indispensable for anyone interested in Pythagorean thought, Neoplatonism, or the symbolism of numbers. So this had, you see it's a short work, but it's probably pretty dense as far as the material is concerned. I've been watching it for a while. Can't wait to just kind of get into that a little bit. The symbolism and mystical teachings on the first 10 numbers, and looking at the first 10 numbers as cosmology or even theology, is something that goes back to the ancient world and beyond. We don't even know. In Egyptian religion, culture, however you want to frame that, definitely the numbers played a big part. And all Hermeticism, which is the Perennial philosophy, and that kind of stuff, alchemy. It's all, number symbolism is really, really big. And that kind of stuff is my jam. Another thing that's kind of in this vein is I have a collection of Charles Williams' theological works. This is 2/3 of the theological essays that he wrote. He Came Down from Heaven and The Forgiveness of Sins. He wrote another long theological essay called The Descent of the Dove, and I don't have that one, but this one has been on my eBay watch list for a very, very long time, and I finally just pulled the trigger on it. Couldn't get it for any less than like $22-23, but it's brand new. I mean, it's not even ever been opened when I got it, so I don't mind. This is something that I really wanted to get in on. If you've seen my Charles Williams author spotlight video, I'll link it below if you're not familiar. I touch on a little bit of his theology that comes out in one of his novels called Descent into Hell. And when I touch on that, that what I've said about that is just it's the doctrine of substituted love, and that comes from the way that it works out. His theological ideas work out in that book. But I haven't read any of his theological writings straight. only come in contact with it through his fiction work. So I'm very excited about getting to that, actually. Another thing that has been on my eBay watch list for a very long time, ever since I started hearing about this author, and now I've read 2 of her novels, and they're amazing. 2 reviews are on my channel, of Agua Viva and The Passion According to G.H. But this is the Clarice Lispector complete short stories. Pretty awesome, huh? We're gonna go slow around here. So when I've read a couple of her short stories, and they're every bit as wild as her novels are. Kind of like meditations, and very, very psychological, not to say mystical, very inward. And so I'm looking forward to getting into this a lot. Definitely have been trying to. Jeff Vandermeer, the writer of the Southern Reach trilogy, says Clarice Lispector is a genius on the level of Nabokov, talking about her short stories. So there's just too much good stuff, and so I can't wait to just kind of dip into this at my leisure in between reading. I'll just take them one short story at a time or something like that. Clarice Lispector was pretty awesome, and I'll link like just my review of The Passion According to G.H. If you're interested. Another, so these didn't come off of my eBay watch list. These came off of just me finding them in a half price books. So I came across something very interesting, and this is What If Our World Is Their Heaven? The Final Conversations of Philip K. Dick. So if you've seen my Philip K. Dick author spotlight video, then you'll be aware that at the end of that, in 7 years before Philip K. Dick died, 7, maybe 7.5, like coming up to 8, Philip K. Dick had a spiritual experience, an inward experience that could only be termed spiritual, but how he described it is receiving a download of information, lifetime, more than a lifetime worth of information beamed into his brain in moments. And he said it was beyond thought concept. He couldn't think about it. He couldn't comprehend it at the time. He couldn't do anything but just experience and see what was being downloaded into his brain without any concept, without intellectualizing anything. And then he spent the rest of his life, 7 years or more, trying to make sense of that experience. And his writings and things about that experience, he put a lot of them into a framework mentally that he then wrote a trilogy of books on called the Veilist Trilogy. And then all his writings and letters to people concerning these kind of things have been grouped in a book called The Exegesis of Philip K. Dick that I showed there too. So this is transcripts of conversations that he had at the end of his life. Not a whole lot on maybe just digging into that idea. That's not the whole thing they're talking about. It's just conversations, but there is a portion of this. The last 20 or 30 pages is a conversation that is titled Exegesis. So, there is some talking about his experience, what he thought about it, and stuff like this. Now, how Philip K. Dick framed frame this, and you can see it's really just transcript. You have one person talking and Philip K. Dick talking, responding to questions, whatever. It's just transcriptive talk. So I'll be checking that out, and definitely interested because I can't wait to. I like that kind of stuff, and to kind of dig into more of what Philip K. Dick's experience is in the last part of his life is really, really interesting. So the next thing that I got is a book that I was kicking around reading for maybe Midrash, but instead I went with The Gospel According to Jesus Christ by Jose Saramago. And I'm happy I did. But this was another book that I was kicking around reading, and I'm gonna read it now. So this is Michael Moorcock's Behold the Man. So this is like a take on the life of Jesus from a science fiction frame. So time travel plays a part in this. And this edition that I have is really, really cool, actually. There is these illustrations for each chapter. So, chapter 6, right? And then each chapter has these cool kind of illustrations that were done. Let me see something. So, I think that it looks really cool. I can't wait to kind of get into that. I think I'm gonna get into some sci-fi right here, because I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, yet this year. It's fine, but I love sci-fi. So I'm gonna read this one, and then I'm gonna get into Dan Simmons' The Hyperion series, and just do that at some point. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a short work. It's going to be something that I can I'm going to burn through 130 pages at the max. And seems like a fun take on the life of Christ. And then another that I just came across at half price that I was really happy to find is a book on the Perennial tradition. So the Perennial tradition is a name given to a philosophical tradition, Western philosophical tradition, or theological, spiritual. It's hard to classify. The perennial tradition encompasses things like Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, alchemy, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, esotericism, and others. Okay, and the perennial philosophy is coined, that term, by Aldous Huxley when he's talking, and he wrote an essay, a long essay on the perennial philosophy. So I always just termed that philosophy as Hermeticism, and that goes back to ancient Greece and even before, where Hermetics is the name given to this philosophy, this spirituality, by the Greeks from the god Hermes. Hermes is an analogous to Thoth, the god in the Egyptian pantheon. So, it just keeps going. This kind of philosophy has been around and will be around, and has many iterations in different Western culture, but even it goes back before history, before our recorded history. So we don't know, but it's definitely very interesting, and I'll touch on that down the road. That's just a collection. Norman Livergood wrote it, but it is something where it's just a survey, and it's just expounding on different ideas about expounding on different ideas of the perennial philosophy of Hermeticism, and I'll just kind of take it as it comes and how I want. So I hope you enjoyed this booktube. I'll write in the description box all the books that I've kind of touched on. Just some really cool stuff that I've found lately. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.